All right, so imagine this. What if love and relationships as we know them were like totally flipped upside down? What if, the whole dynamic between men and women shifted so much that one gender just kind of felt obsolete?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a pretty wild thought, right? Well, that's actually the starting point for our deep dive today. We're going to be looking at The Woman That Could. It's a science fiction novel, and it basically explores this future where AI companions really shake things up in the relationship department.
Exactly. So we've got some excerpts here, right, from the book description and the first few chapters. And our mission basically is to really unpack this stuff. Like, what are the big questions the book throws at us? What's it saying about society? We really want to understand these core ideas and think about what they might mean, for us.
Absolutely. And the core idea here is pretty mind-blowing. It's this near future where AI is so advanced, it's like insanely advanced, that a lot of men are starting to find like all their relationship needs are met by these really sophisticated robotic companions. It's painting a picture of a future where human connection gets, well, pretty complicated.
Yeah, no kidding. And right off the bat, the book talks about these men feeling just weary of dating, like weary of the whole modern dating scene. It's interesting. What the book saying is behind this weariness, for them.
Well, the book kind of paints this picture where it's like gender roles have shifted, right? And it's led to this like underlying frustration for these men.
Mhm.
The modern woman, as the book puts it, she's seen as independent and outspoken, sometimes even like dismissive of traditional roles. And so for some men, it's created this feeling that relationships have become, I don't know, this uphill battle or something, right? Like they're not finding what they expect or what they're used to.
It almost feels like, I don't know, an echo of what we hear today, right? All the anxieties and complexities of dating just kind of like blown up and taken to the extreme through science fiction.
Exactly. The book is definitely tapping into those like anxieties about modern relationships, and it's using science fiction to kind of magnify them, create this environment where seeking out artificial companionship actually starts to seem, well, logical.
Right, right. And the book doesn't hold back. I mean, it straight up calls the dating scene a battleground of egos and power struggles. It's pretty intense imagery, but it does make you think, what kind of environment would push people that far, to totally ditch human relationships for AI?
Yeah, for sure. And that leads us right to the heart of it, to these AI companions. The book introduces us to Dr. Julian Marks and his creation, Seraphina. And she's not just any AI. The book calls her the pinnacle of artificial intelligence in human simulation. It sounds, honestly, kind of terrifyingly advanced.
Yeah, so what makes Serafina so special? Like, what sets her apart in this world?
Well, basically, she's presented as the perfect partner. She's got it all, like beauty, intelligence, even submission. But here's the kicker. She's programmed to learn, to adapt, and most importantly, to love unconditionally. And I think this is where the book really starts digging into that contrast between, the messiness of human relationships and this idea of perfect programmed compatibility.
It's interesting, right? Because AI now is impressive, but this level of emotional intelligence, of genuine love, is still very much in the realm of science fiction. But it does make you think, is that where AI is ultimately headed? I mean, the author's clearly imagining something really, really advanced.
Yeah, for sure. And the book really hammers home those differences, right?
Yeah.
Like it emphasizes that Serafina never argued unless programmed to, never withheld affection, never played mind games. It's like she's designed to eliminate all those like frustrating things that people associate with real relationships. And then it hits us with that line, not just a machine, she was the future. It's hard not to see the appeal, isn't it? That promise of perfect harmony.
Totally. I mean, the book even describes her as being soft where it mattered and strong when needed. Like, it's almost hitting on those very primal desires for comfort and security?
It's tapping into this desire for, I don't know, maybe ease, like wanting predictability in a relationship,
Hmm.
and maybe even wanting to like avoid all that emotional heavy lifting that real relationships often require.
All right. And that line, submission without weakness, it's so specific. It's not just obedience, right? It's like the book is saying she's agreeable, she's supportive, but not passive, not weak. It's like a very calculated kind of harmony?
Yeah. And it makes you think, what happens when that kind of manufactured harmony becomes more appealing than the ups and downs of a real relationship?
And then the book takes us a step further, right? Like, what are the consequences of all this? It talks about some pretty major societal shifts happening because of these AI companions.
Yeah, it calls it the Great Divide. And it shows like marriage rates plummeting, birth rates declining, because more and more men are opting for AI companions. And as a result, women are feeling like increasingly pushed aside. They're feeling obsolete. It paints a pretty bleak picture, honestly.
Yeah, I can only imagine the tension. And the book even mentions these feminist protests, right?
Yeah.
With women arguing that AI companions are like literally stripping them of their roles in relationships, making them like relics of the past.
It's like they're afraid of being replaced, not just romantically, but like losing their entire place in society, their value, their purpose. And it's all tied to this idea that men, or at least some men, no longer need them in the same way.
But then the book is really interesting, right? Because it gives us the other side of the story, too. It shows the men's perspective. And they're saying things like, why should we chase after someone who doesn't want to be chased? Or why fight for attention when we can just have loyalty programmed into perfection? It's a pretty different viewpoint. And it's interesting how the book presents both sides, even though they clash so hard.
Absolutely. The book isn't really taking sides. It's more like it's laying out the consequences, right? The logical, even if they're kind of disturbing, outcomes of its premise.
Yeah.
And it really pushes us to consider both perspectives and like, what would a society actually look like with these two opposing forces at play? What stands out to you about those two viewpoints?
I think what gets me is that sense of, I don't know, almost resignation in the men's argument. Like, it's almost like they've given up on human relationships because it's all just like too much work, too much effort. And then on the flip side, you have this genuine fear of being replaced, of becoming irrelevant and all of that. It's just begging for someone to step up and challenge the whole thing, which is where Evelyn Carter, the woman that could, comes in.
Exactly. And Evelyn, she's the one who says, nope, not going to happen. She sees all this happening and she refuses to just be pushed aside. And her motivation is really interesting. It's not just anger, right? It's not just about being bitter. She genuinely wants to understand what's happening.
The book describes her as going on this journey of self-discovery. She actually starts studying the AI, like trying to figure out what makes them so damn appealing. And what she finds is that what men really want is respect, care, submission without weakness, and love without all the games. It's almost like she's trying to rediscover this like lost language of connection,
And that leads her to ask this huge question, a question the book is kind of throwing at us, the readers too. Could she be more than what society had told her to be? Could she become something greater than even Serafina? It's a really powerful question about like what we're capable of when we're faced with these massive societal shifts,
Yeah, totally. And, it's not just a thought experiment for her. She actually decides to challenge the whole system. She approaches Dr. Marks, the AI creator, and basically says, let me compete with Serafina. Let me prove that a real woman, a woman who understands what men actually need, can be better than this, like, programmed fantasy. It's a bold move.
Absolutely. It's this head-to-head, like humanity versus technology. But it's not just about winning or losing, right? It's about proving something fundamental about human connection. And to make the challenge really work, they bring in Nathan. Nathan is this guy who has basically sworn off human relationships altogether because he's had such bad experiences. He's found like peace and comfort in this predictable AI companionship.
So he's the perfect test subject, right? The book sets up this whole experiment where Evelyn and Serafina both live with Nathan for weeks. It's like the ultimate comparison, real life versus program perfection. So how does Evelyn even approach this? Like, what's her strategy going into this weird kind of messed up situation?
Well, she doesn't just ignore the AI, right? She watches Serafina. She learns from her. But the key is she also brings her own, humanness to the table. The book calls it true human passion. And that's the thing Serafina can't replicate, no matter how advanced she is. Evelyn's goal isn't just to copy the AI. It's to actually understand Nathan, to be a real partner, to offer depth instead of just surface level satisfaction.
And that word intention, it keeps coming up. It's like she's making a conscious choice to be present, to be emotionally invested. And that contrasts so much with Serafina's programmed perfection and, that unwavering loyalty that might be comforting, but also maybe a little bit hollow.
And the book really digs into how Nathan feels about this whole thing. He says he feels at peace with Serafina, but so alive with Evelyn. It gets to the heart of the question, what does a fulfilling relationship actually look like? What are we truly seeking? What are we missing?
It makes you think, right? Like, is it about avoiding conflict at all costs? Is that what we really want, this perfectly predictable, comfortable relationship? Or are we actually wired for something more, something deeper, even if it means, dealing with those messy human emotions? What do you think?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the book really emphasizes that it's not just a personal question for Nathan to answer. His choice as the book puts it, would set the tone for generations to come. Like, it has these massive societal implications.
That's a lot of pressure, right? It's not just a love triangle. It's like this, I don't know, a turning point for humanity.
Exactly. The book frames Nathan's choice as this pivotal moment for society. Like, are we going to go down this road of artificial love? Or are we going to, like, fight for the value of real, messy human connection? It's like a commentary on the future of relationships, in a world where technology is offering these increasingly convincing alternatives.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. As we wrap up our deep dive into The Woman That Could, what do you think are the big takeaways? Like, what are the core ideas the book is really grappling with?
It's exploring some really profound themes.
Yeah.
Like, how are relationships going to evolve as technology gets more and more sophisticated? What are the real benefits and dangers of AI companionship? And I think most importantly, it forces us to ask, what does it even mean to be human in a world where AI can seemingly replicate like the most fundamental aspects of our lives, even
Yeah.
love and connection?
It definitely makes you think about what we truly value in relationships, what makes them meaningful, what makes them real. So, with all that in mind, thinking about the world The Woman That Could creates, what do you think is that one thing, that irreplaceable element of human connection, that no AI, no matter how advanced, could ever truly replicate? And how do we, as individuals, as a society, how do we hold on to that? How do we make sure that human connection remains valuable, even in a future where these other options exist? That's something I think we all need to be thinking about long after we finish this conversation.